Hung's mother was faced with the most conflicting decision of her life, one that would bring long-hidden secrets to light. Lying in the hospital bed, Ba Bei suddenly opened her eyes, called out Hoai's name, and grasped Hung's hand tightly, her voice shaking, but firm. The first words she spoke didn't just clear up all the misunderstandings, but revealed a secret no one, not even Hung or Hoai Ca, could have imagined. A secret connected to the house, to the silence that Ba Hung had kept for so long, and a regret that she had carried for many years. This truth will keep you on the edge of your seat. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the full story coming up next. The ICU room number 203 was bathed in a faint yellow light, casting shadows across Mrs. Bei's pale face. Her breath was shallow, her chest rising and falling in delicate rhythm. Though the doctors had reassured them that the worst had passed for Hung and Hoai Ca, every breath she took seemed to freeze them in place. Hung stood near the window, gazing out at the pouring rain. He hadn't spoken since they brought Mrs. Bei into the hospital. The relentless downpour outside seemed to mirror his own heartbeat, drowning in guilt and fear. What if I hadn't left her alone at home? What if I'd gotten here sooner? What if I could have protected Hoai Ca and her better? This wouldn't have happened. Hoai Ca sat beside Mrs. Bei, one hand gently holding hers, the other resting on her growing belly. The tiny life inside her felt like a tether to reality, a lifeline that kept her grounded even as panic threatened to rise. She knew she had to stay calm for the baby, but the sight of Mrs. Bei lying so still, so vulnerable, made her chest tighten with an overwhelming dread. The room was heavy with silence, the sound of rain, the constant beeping of the monitor, the hum of the fan above. Then suddenly the monitor beeped rapidly. Hoai Ca's heart skipped a beat. Hung her heart rate. Hung rushed to her side, grabbing her hand. "Mrs. Bei, can you hear me?" A faint movement, a barely perceptible flutter of an eyelid, then a soft, fragile breath. Hoai Ca held her breath. She's waking up. Mrs. Bei's eyelids fluttered again this time, opening slowly as if the world was spinning into focus. No one dared breathe. Hung's voice cracked as he leaned in. "Mrs. Bei, do you see us?" Her eyes slowly met theirs, and a tear slipped down Hoai Ca's cheek. "Ba." Hoai Ca's voice trembled barely above a whisper. "You scared us so much." A faint smile curved on Mrs. Bei's lips, weak but unmistakable. "Hung Ca," she whispered, barely audible. "Don't be afraid. I'm still here." Hung wanted to break down but forced himself to stay strong. "Don't talk like that, Ba. What matters is you're awake. Are you in pain anywhere?" She shook her head, a subtle movement. Then her eyes softened, as if burdened with something more than exhaustion. There was a secret in those eyes. I need to tell you something." Her voice was fragile, barely a murmur. Hoai Ca squeezed her hand, leaning in, urging her to continue. "Please, Ba, we're listening." Mrs. Bei took a slow breath, gathering her strength. The dim light flickered overhead, casting shadows as if the room itself was waiting. The words hung in the air, suspended between them as the silence deepened. Hoai Ca pulled her chair closer, her heart tight with anxiety, while Hung sat near the edge of the bed, almost afraid that if he let go of his grip on her hand, Mrs. Bei might disappear. Her eyes, though still dim with exhaustion, began to clear. There was something unsaid in her gaze, a depth of emotion neither of them fully understood. Taking a slow breath, Mrs. Bay gathered her strength to speak. Hung. Ka. There's been a huge misunderstanding. Hoai Ca furrowed her brow. What misunderstanding, Ba? She blinked, then glanced at the ceiling, gathering her thoughts before meeting their eyes again. I didn't faint because of anyone. My condition, it's from my head. A lack of blood. I fainted because of the illness, not because of anything that startled me. Hung stood frozen. But the neighbors said you were scared when Mom came to the house, that you got upset. Mrs. Bay gave a weak laugh, the sound fragile but knowing. Anyone can get startled, especially at my age. But the fainting, it was just my illness, the doctor explained. Hung exchanged a confused glance with Hoai Ca. They had both assumed that his mother's confrontation with Mrs. Bay had triggered the collapse, but hearing this explanation upended their beliefs. While they felt a sense of relief, it was also mixed with confusion. But Mrs. Bay wasn't done. There's something else, something more important. She reached out her trembling hand, gripping Hoai Ca's wrist with surprising strength. Hoai Ca, please don't misunderstand your mother-in-law anymore. She's not as bad as you think. The air thickened with tension. Hoai Ca forced a smile. But she's said such harsh things to me. I'm scared. Mrs. Bay shook her head, her movement stronger this time. It's not about you. It's not about the baby or the house. She said those things because she's scared of losing her son again. Hung's brow furrowed deeper. Bah. My mother. What do you mean? Mrs. Bay turned her piercing gaze on him, the years weighing on her, but her insight sharp as ever. Hung. Your mother loves you, but it's a hard kind of love. You don't know this, but she's cried for you more times than you'd guess. She's afraid that once you marry, you'll forget her. She's afraid of you loving Hoai Ca and leaving her behind. She's loud, but her heart is soft. Hoai Ca lowered her head, unable to stop the tears that now fell freely onto Mrs. Bay's hand. And Hung? His fists clenched at his sides. For so long he'd harbored resentment toward his mother, and now hearing this, it felt like his heart was being crushed. But the true revelation still hadn't come. Mrs. Bay looked at them both with intensity, then whispered, Your mother bought the house back. The room seemed to freeze. Hoai Ca gasped. What? She bought it back? Hung shot to his feet, his voice shaking. Bought the house Mom did. Mrs. Bay nodded, her voice steady, but filled with an ache. She quietly gathered every penny and bought the house back. She planned to transfer it to you too. She asked me to keep the papers for a while, because she was afraid you wouldn't accept it. The shock was palpable. Hoai Ca's hands flew to her mouth, her tears falling uncontrollably. Hung stood still, his heart pounding. Mrs. Bay continued, When she came here, it wasn't to cause trouble. She brought the papers. She was going to tell you the truth, but then I had the attack. Hoai Ca choked out. So, we've misunderstood her all along. Mrs. Bay's grip on Hoai Ca's hand tightened, her voice weak but firm. Yes, your mother-in-law isn't bad. She just doesn't know how to show love. She loves by her actions. Hung's voice trembled. Bah, my mom really did this. Mrs. Bay nodded again, her words carrying a lifetime of regret and hope. She loves you both. She regrets everything. She did her best to make things right. At those words, Hoai Ca broke down in tears. Hung turned away his hand, covering his eyes. He couldn't bear for her to see his weakness. Both of them were choked with emotion. For so long they had blamed the wrong person. They had misunderstood a woman who only knew how to love clumsily. And it was Mrs. Bay in that quiet, pivotal moment who untangled all the knots. Hung, don't be angry with your mother anymore. After speaking, Mrs. Bay exhaled as if releasing the heaviest burden she'd ever carried. Her eyes slowly closed, not in unconsciousness, but in peace. The couple looked at her, their eyes full of gratitude, regret, and a deep newfound love. The hospital room was unusually calm, the early morning light casting soft golden rays through the light blue curtains, creating thin beams across the white tile floor. The hallway was quiet, the bustling of the hospital absent. Hoai Ca and Hung had left earlier. The doctor had advised Hoai Ca to rest because of her delicate pregnancy. Inside the room, only Mrs. Bay remained propped up on a high pillow. Her face had more color than before, and she looked out the window, listening to the faint chirping of birds outside. She knew there was something important she still had to do. A soft knock on the door broke the stillness, and Hung's mother entered, her face, tired eyes, swollen from a sleepless night. The two women, having lived through a lifetime of unspoken emotions, shared a quiet moment together. Mrs. Bay managed a weak smile. "You've come, huh?" Hung's mother walked over, placing a bowl of porridge on the table. Her voice was small, trembling. "I'm sorry. The other day I didn't realize you were that sick." Mrs. Bay waved her hand dismissively. "It's not your fault. I've said it before." Hung's mother bit her lip, her eyes red. "Last night, Hung told me they misunderstood me a lot. I know. It's because I'm clumsy, because I don't know how to say the right things." Mrs. Bay met her gaze directly. "You loved your son, that's why you acted the way you did. But love, you have to show it. You can't stay silent all the time. They won't understand." Hung's mother lowered her head, her shoulders heavy with guilt. "I'm ashamed. I bought the house for them, but I didn't dare give it to them. Afraid they'd get angry, afraid they'd think I was interfering in their lives." Her voice caught tears welling up. "I'm afraid my son will hate me." Mrs. Bay took her hand, her voice warm but firm. "Hung loves you. He was angry because he thought you were hurting me. But now I've told them everything. They know. Don't be sad anymore." Tears welled up in Hung's mother's eyes. "Really, they know everything." Mrs. Bay nodded, her eyes full of confidence. "Hoai Ca cried a lot. She cares about you. She regrets misunderstanding you." She continued, her tone gentle but serious. "As for Hung, he's tough on the outside, but last night he cried when he turned away. You, as a mother, you understand that." Hung's mother covered her mouth, unable to hold back her tears. "I just wanted them to have a proper home. I just want, when I'm old, to have grandchildren in my arms." "You will," Mrs. Bay reassured her. "But you have to open your heart. You need to apologize to them. Give them a hug. They've been waiting for that for a long time." Wiping her tears, Hung's mother nodded. I will." Mrs. Bay smiled softly, her face lighting up the room. "Good. Now sit down and eat some porridge with me." The two women, once at odds, now sat side by side. One peeled an orange, the other stirred the porridge. The room, once thick with tension, now felt lighter, as if the weight from the previous night had finally lifted. Finally, Mrs. Bay placed her hand on Hung's mother's, speaking the final words that would dissolve all the misunderstandings. Don't regret it anymore. I've told them the truth. Your son, he loves you so much. You just need to love him back, and the family will be whole again. Hung's mother began to sob, but this time it was the cry of someone set free. In the soft morning light of the hospital room, the two women exchanged a look as though they had crossed into a new chapter, one that was warmer, gentler, and full of hope. As the morning sunlight continued to bathe the room, its golden rays reflecting off the white walls, the atmosphere seemed to settle into a peaceful quiet. Outside, the sound of distant birds and the soft rustling of trees in the breeze were the only interruptions to the otherwise calm setting. Inside, a subtle shift had taken place, one that marked a new chapter, one filled with both sorrow and understanding. The tension that had once hung heavy in the air was now lifting, replaced by a sense of quiet resolution. Hung's mother, still wiping the last of her tears, sat beside Mrs. Bay, the two women now more connected than ever before. The long history of silence, the misunderstandings, and the unsaid words between them seemed to be fading away, leaving only the bare truth. I didn't know how to show it. Hung's mother admitted, her voice shaky but filled with sincerity. I kept everything inside, and it just made things worse. Mrs. Bay nodded gently, squeezing her hand. It's not easy to express love sometimes, especially when you've been hurt or when you fear rejection. But love, it's not enough to just feel it. You have to show it to say it. They need to hear it. Hung's mother looked down at her hands, still trembling. I never meant for any of this to happen. I only wanted to protect them, to give them something stable, something they could rely on. But I never realized how it all looked to them. I never realized how they might feel. Mrs. Bay looked out the window, the quiet reflection of her own life echoing in her thoughts. She too had struggled with expressing her emotions, but in the end, she had learned that honesty and openness were the only ways to heal. She had spent much of her life keeping things hidden, only to realize that it was the secrets and the unspoken words that created the deepest wounds. It's hard, Mrs. Bay said softly, but you have to be honest with them, especially with Hung. He's a good man, but sometimes we protect the ones we love so much that we forget to show them how much we truly care. Hung's mother nodded slowly, her heart heavy with regret, but also with a sense of clarity. She had spent so many years in fear, afraid of losing her son, afraid of not being needed. She had done what she thought was best, but it had only driven a wedge between them. I'll do it, she said, her voice firm now, though still filled with emotion. I'll talk to them. I'll apologize. I'll show them that I care. I don't want to lose them. Mrs. Bay smiled warmly, her eyes filled with understanding. That's the first step, my dear. It won't be easy, but it's the only way forward. The room fell into a comfortable silence, the two women sitting together in their shared understanding. They had both come to realize that love, though often difficult to express, was the foundation of everything. It wasn't just about grand gestures or perfect words. It was about being there, showing up, and doing the best you could, even when it seemed impossible. After a few moments, Mrs. Bay stood slowly, her movements still a bit unsteady from her recent illness. I think we should get some rest now. You've been through so much. We all have. Hung's mother nodded, grateful for the wisdom in Mrs. Bay's words. As she looked at the older woman, she felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the help she had offered, but for the strength she had shown in guiding her through this moment of reconciliation. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "for everything." Mrs. Bay simply smiled, her tired eyes glimmering with a quiet wisdom. "No need to thank me. We're family, and family sticks together no matter what." As the two women sat there quietly sharing a moment of peace, the weight of the past slowly began to lift. There was still work to be done, still healing to take place, but they had taken the first steps. And for the first time in a long time, there was a sense of hope, a sense that despite everything they would be okay. The light in the room seemed to brighten just a little, as if reflecting the change in the air. The long path ahead didn't seem so daunting anymore, and the bond between them, though still fragile, had begun to take root once again. And in that quiet, peaceful moment, they both knew that love in its own time would heal even the deepest of wounds.